Welcome to the channel, guys. I have a video for you today about Trump's Executive Order 14399 ensuring citizenship verification and integrity in federal elections. Now, remember, the U.S. Postal Service is a federal body, and we're talking about federal elections here and making sure that only citizens are voting. Before I get into it, I'd appreciate if you'd like, share, and subscribe. It's free, costs nothing, and it's a big boost to the channel. All right, so President Trump's Executive Order 14399, ensuring citizenship verification and integrity in federal elections. The proposal shifts the federal government's role from providing non-binding election guidance to enforcing strict regulatory mandates on mail-in ballots. Core requirements of the proposal in voter data submission: the states must submit to the USPS the names and addresses of all voters who request or are issued a mail-in or absentee ballot in federal elections. This must be submitted at least 30 days before ballots are mailed under the state law. Mandatory ballot barcodes. Now, this is a big part of this. States are required to provide unique barcodes tied to each individual voter's outbound and return ballot envelopes. The Ballot Rejection Authority, USPS, would be granted the explicit power to reject or return outbound federal ballot mailings that don't meet the new design criteria or are not matched to voter data provided by the state. Mandatory design standards. The rule enforces best practices as mandatory requirements, which include mandatory use of official election mail logos, specific envelope design reviews, and tracking barcodes. The rule permits election officials to make supplemental submissions to add or modify voter lists until the last day ballots can legally be mailed under state law. The timeline: the proposed rule is scheduled to be officially published in the Federal Register on Tuesday, June the 2nd of this year, and this will kick off a 30-day public comment period closing on July 2nd of 26. The rule was unveiled exactly one day after a federal judge in Washington, D.C. declined to immediately block the executive order, ruling that legal challenges were premature because the rules had not been formally drafted or implemented. Ongoing multi-state lawsuits from states' attorney general are still proceeding through the federal courts, and the states push back voting rights advocates, Mark Elias especially, advocates and state election officials, such as the Washington Secretary of State, have criticized the plan. They argue that it constitutes federal overreach and infringes on states' constitutional authority to manage elections and creates logistical barriers that could lead to widespread ballot delays or errors. But here's the thing: barcodes means that the mail can be processed efficiently. USPS already has this capability. It won't cost taxpayers anything extra. Uniquely serialized barcodes facilitate to and from voters, so there won't be able to be any BS. And if there are certain mail carriers that, we saw the ballot dumps in different weird places in 2020 where there's just ballots like thrown in dumpsters and stuff. Well, if you're a mail carrier and you do something like that, the computer is going to figure that out pretty quickly, because there's, return rates that are pretty much known. And so we don't have to guess on a lot of this. This simplifies the processing of data throughout USPS. Scan it on the way out, scan it on the way in. states will notify USPS of a list of voters, and this will evidence how many ballots went out and how many ballots came back. And that's going to help you detect any potential issues. The postal workers are going to be scrutinized and all this. And I thought this was just fascinating because the USPS, like I said, already has the statutory authority to do this. Okay, so this isn't like an overreach in any way. They control the mail. So this looks to me like it's not going to be reversed by any court. And it looks to be a pretty darn good fix to the mail-in balloting fiasco that we got going on. Because look we know somewhere between 20 and 30 million illegals were brought into the country in the last administration. And if you even have 1 or 2% of them voting, especially in the swing states that were, the 7 swing states that were in such question in 2020, that could throw an election. I mean, you saw 3 states decided the 2020 election by right around 10, 12,000 votes. So you don't need many fraudulent ballots to throw the system off. And like I said, Mark Elias, he's losing his mind over this, and he should, because their plan to cheat in elections using all these people they imported it's collapsing in real time here. So I thought this was fascinating. I wanted to bring this to you guys. It's great news, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and God bless.